So next I'm going to share with you some personal statement topics that might be useful for you to consider as you're thinking about potential essays that you might write. The first topic would be having been shaped by an experience of some sort. And one of my favorite examples of this was a student who talks about being in a dance competition, and as someone who was very unlikely, was an unlikely dancer, that he put himself out there and tried out for this competition called Mr. ASD at his school. I'm just going to read you a little excerpt of it. So he says, "I stand anxiously behind the black curtains, cautiously peeking through to admire the scenery before me. The theater is dark, the spotlight forming a lonely white circle against the black mass that is the stage. A spot on stage fit just for me. The light almost seems heavenly amongst the dark, exposing the dust particles hovering in its beam. My peers sit in their red, snug chairs, whispering tales to each other. Are they talking about me? The judges are situated on stage, patiently waiting for the music to start. The setting is perfect. I am not. A drop of sweat leisurely crawls down my back. My heart attempts to violently rip through my chest and flee. My legs are melting. What on earth had I been thinking? My grade had voted for me to compete in this year's Mr. ASD competition, a male pageant that requires one to participate in a fashion show and perform an extraordinary talent. I am in no way the conventional Mr. ASD title holder. I'm a short math and science guy who occasionally dances in his own room. Surprisingly, I had embraced the challenge. Optimism had blinded me, confidence had conned me. Now I'm shaking behind a dusty curtain, waiting for my soundtrack to begin." And then he goes on to talk about the actual dancing and winning the competition, but he transitions at the end into talking about taking that same risk-taking personality into other places and trying new things and being willing to put himself out there regardless of the fear. So that was one that I really loved. Another interesting one, or interesting topic in general, could be talking about a relationship that's been meaningful to you. And again, this can be a great topic as long as you make sure that you keep it on you, keep the focus on you and what you've learned from this relationship. So one of our students a few years ago wrote an excellent essay called Brothers, and it's all about one of his close friendships that he formed in Dubai. He says, "Bros are common, but brothers aren't. I met my brother in 8th grade, in math class of all places. I wouldn't call it a love at first sight moment. We weren't really interested in the same activities. I was engrossed with sports, and he loved to paint. Farouk was born in Cairo, Egypt, into a Muslim family of 2 working parents. Originally Lebanese, he's lived in the Middle East his whole life and plans to come back after university. I, on the other hand, was born in a little village in Switzerland and was brought up in a Christian household with an American mother and Swiss father. I spent half of my life in Europe before moving to Dubai. These differences reflect in our preferences. He likes the beach, I like the forest. I enjoy steak, he prefers asafir, baby birds, fried and served whole. Needless to say, I've yet to try them." And then he talks a little bit about some of the common ground that they found together and activities that they became involved in together, and reveals some of his own interests in doing so. He finishes by saying the following: Had I not looked past those trivial differences that day in math class, I would have missed out on a life-changing relationship. Next year, Farouk and I will most likely be in different states and later in different countries. But that doesn't worry me. Distance doesn't break family. And I love this because, again, if you're thinking about what a university would be looking for in a student, they want students who are going to be bridge builders, who are going to really look past those, surface differences and find ways to connect with others on campus who may be very different from them. So I think an admissions committee would really enjoy, seeing that type of personality. A third type of essay can be about a problem that has shaped you. So that could be something like shyness. It could be a death or divorce in your family. It could be about an injury. And again, what you want to focus on is what you learned from the situation, how you grew as a result of going through this trial. One of our students had been through a really difficult situation where she had had a series of strokes at the age of 5 that had really profoundly impacted her, and she chose to talk about it. And I love this essay because it finishes with a lot of optimism about the future and resilience. Listen to what she says. "I'll never climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I'll never wear high heels. I'll never catch a softball with my right hand. More than that, I remember the first time I completely dressed myself, the first time I could bend my leg without anyone's help, the first time I could lift a pencil off the floor. All are seemingly minor actions until you've lost the ability to do them and realize how essential they are to your everyday life. Suffering a stroke at the age of 5 has forever changed me. I've learned to endure physical and emotional pain that I didn't think possible, but the growth I've experienced has been even greater." Then she goes on in her essay to talk a little bit about the surgeries, give a sense of what she actually had endured, but then on the flip side, how her outlook on life changed as she went through gym and physical training, and then actually gave a speech at her school through a TED Talk about her experience, how she turned that adversity into strength, which is fantastic. She finishes her essay by saying, "Were it not for my stroke, then I would not be who I am today. I'm thankful for the lessons it taught me while fighting through the pain it brought. It helped me appreciate hard work and reassured me that I have the capability to go through whatever life throws at me. I didn't just overcome adversity, but allowed it to take me to a greater and better place than I ever would have gone through without it. My stroke was conquered long ago, but its positive consequences will last a lifetime." And then the final one that I wanted to share with you is a story that expresses a trait, and that trait can be resilience, it can be a sense of adventure, it can be a sense of humor, it can be any trait that you think is a big part of your personality. For this student, he really wanted to show his sense of humor and his persistence in a very entertaining way. So this was a student who reveals that he asked the same girl out 4 times and was rejected by her 4 times. And he tells us that story in a very humorous way. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts to you from that. He says, some say love hurts, others argue that unrequited love hurts more, and some confidently assert that rejection hurts the most. Ha! They know not. I, however, know the pain of being in love with the same person in the dandiest unrequited fashion and facing rejection 4 times over. Oh yes, you heard me right. I am that much of a romantic fool. In fact, if military prowess in the Second World War was measured by romantic luck, I'd definitely be France. Not because of the fact that I give up when it comes to love. Far from it. Rather, because I'm just that bad. That's right, oh you who are reading this rather interesting personal essay. I am the Wile E. Coyote of romance, and if you know Mr. Coyote, you know how unlucky I am. He goes on to describe each of the situations in which he proclaimed his love and each of the times that he was shot down. But he finishes with a really sort of deep thought. So his final paragraph says, "With time and reflection, I slowly began to realize that my passions are flames that don't burn out. They persist in all storms, and they exist in many forms. I have found that I most value the pursuits that make life beautiful. My love for theater, history, poetry, nature, and friendship shape who I am. To understand these treasured pleasures is to understand and accept myself. Learning to accept my friends' feelings enabled me to grow as an individual. From this, I learned to stay true to my feelings as she had done herself. While small, I learned a lesson of honesty, persistence, and failure. Thankfully, my failure was not complete. Later, I admit, I approached her and made a 5th and final confession. This time, I told her how grateful I was for our friendship. This mutual feeling has led us to become the greatest of friends. Through this experience, I've learned that love comes in many forms. Love for people, for passions, and for oneself." In the poem Worsted Hoe, Samuel Beckett best expresses the lesson I've learned from this chapter of my life. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. So I hope from these 4 examples, you can see how different a personal statement can be, and yet how effective different types of statements can be. And what you really want to do is find a personal statement that reflects you, and that where if it fell on a floor and somebody picked it up, they would know that it's your voice speaking from it.